Today on the podcast, I am welcoming Verena Brunschweiger, who is an author, passionate child-free activist, and feminist. In 2019, her first German book about living child-free caused an international stir, and she's been advocating and writing about living child-free ever since. She studied German, English, and philosophy and received her PhD in 2007. Known as Germany's child-free icon, her views are radical and have caused her to receive thousands of messages threatening violence and even death. Her unique views on environmentalism, feminism, and antinatalist philosophy are radical and controversial. And when I read her most recent book, Do Child-Free People Have Better Sex?, I knew she'd be a perfect guest for Call Her Daring, where we strive to be radically honest about the female experience. Verena, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I want to talk about your book, Do Child-Free People Have Better Sex? And in that book, you argue that having children is the greatest facilitator of climate change. And you examine human reproduction through lenses of ecology, feminism, politics, and the philosophy of antinatalism. And I want to talk about each of those areas separately. But I want to start with ecology and climate change, which, in my opinion, are the biggest and best reasons to not have children. What is the effect that overpopulation is having on our environment right now?
Well, we have Earth Overshoot Day, which means we have used up all the resources we would theoretically need here in our Western industrialized world, and we live off future generations from this point in time onwards. So this will be the global Overshoot Day this year will be on August the 1st, which is, by the way, also International Childfree Day. And this is the greatest coincidence ever. So this fits perfectly.
The irony, it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So that fits. I couldn't believe it when I read this earlier. Yeah, but really it is true. And in Germany and also in the US, it was already earlier this year. For instance, in your country, it was in March. Here we had this in May, and there are still so many months to go. And theoretically, we have no resources left. If we continue living like this, we wouldn't need 3 Earths. We only have one. Or
I've
even
never
more.
heard of Overshoot Day.
Earth Overshoot Day. This is a thing. Yeah. People celebrate it. Well, commemorate it more likely.
Oh, wow.
Be proud about. It's really a horrible thing. And it's basically about we in the Western civilized, industrialized world, we use so many resources, and people in the global South don't have any resources at all. And they suffer horribly from this climate change that we produce by just being too many, using too much. And this whole thing can be explained in the IPAT formula, which means impact consists of population, affluence, and technology. So it's up to us in the Western North, so to speak, and not as many right-wing people keep saying in the global South. Oh, they have so many kids in, for instance, Africa. The average is 5 kids per woman. Yeah, well, so they could have 30 to make up for 1 German child.
Oh, really? Is that
Yeah.
a statistic? There's 30 children to one of ours.
And actually, I got a great shitstorm due to pointing that out several years ago. Everyone quoted me when I said, well, 1 German child uses as many resources as a whole classroom of the average African kid. And, wow, how can she say this? Horrible. Yeah, well, it's just the truth. And it's really sad that so many people keep ignoring this.
So to clarify, Earth Overshoot Day is the day at which we are basically on borrowed resources, or for lack of a better term. Okay. And it's different for each country?
Yeah.
It's based on the resources found in that country. Okay.
What we use.
Okay.
And the uses too much, we use too much. Yeah. Well, there are countries in Africa, for instance, Chad or Niger or Burundi, they don't use anything.
Yeah.
Close to nothing, so that they can have all the people they want because they don't have anything. And I might show you this chart, which could also be interesting. And this says, for instance, here, savings per action in tons of carbon dioxide per person That was a study done by Swedish Canadian researchers in 2017. And this big button here is have one fewer child, which saves 58.6 tons. And for instance, going vegan or living car-free or avoiding transatlantic flights, buy a more efficient car. These are all so little contributions, really small contributions in the industrialized global north, so to speak. That's what I'm talking about. Everyone harks on about those contributions, and it's so incredibly important to eat less meat and to buy a environmentally friendlier car and this and that, or using less plastic bags. I'm really annoyed that almost nobody mentions population as one of the biggest factor driving climate change.
You're completely right.
The truth.
Yeah, that visual is really impactful because you're right. All I hear about is driving an electric car or eating less meat, not walking, riding your bike, not flying so much. And by far, the most impactful thing you can do, according to that study, is just not have a child or have one less child.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
And nobody's talking about that, of course. For somebody who is going to have children right now or within the next 10 years or so, what will that child be forced to deal with as a result of climate change? What does their future look like?
Depending on the country you live in, it can be really getting from bad to worse. For instance, in the global south, people are having almost no resources right now. There was a woman in India who was stabbed due to a fight over water. Of course, it's the women who go and fetch water for the whole family. Misogyny, etc. It's always a big fact as well. And they won't be able to exist in their home countries anymore. And of course, we have more climate refugees then. We have predictions. Millions of climate refugees are going to come to Europe, and right-wing parties here already say, oh, we have too many refugees. Yeah, well, but they produce the climate change which makes their countries uninhabitable. The temperatures are so high up, the drought, the bushfires, the whole country is burning again. For instance, the whole continent. In Europe, we have in Greece and also in other countries, all those horrible fires going on. Or the forests. I'm not sure if we will have any forests left in several decades. Probably not, because everything is shrinking and habitats are getting lost and whole species are going extinct and nobody cares. It's only humans, and we need housing, we need this and that and our lifestyle. And there was a recent survey in a German big newspaper, and I read this, and it was incredible. 95% said, oh, they want to actually refrain from nothing. They want to go on living like this. I can't believe it. And only some people said, well, I might fly less, maybe, or I won't go on this cruise ship, maybe. But that's all I'm prepared to sacrifice. And
Do
I
you
really
think, is it willful ignorance? Why aren't these people paying attention? These people who don't want their lives to change at all, but are the same people who are having children. Do they just not know how much this is going to impact their children, how their children's lives are going to be so much harder because of the lack of resources? Do they not know that, or do they just not care? In your experience, what have you noticed?
It's some kind of combination often, and some really don't care at all because they think, oh, here in Europe we'll always be safe, and it's only those poor buggers in the global south, and we don't like them anyway. So it's great if they die.
Interesting. Okay. So it's not going to happen to us. It's not going to happen to me.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So
not in my backyard.
exactly.
Others, that's fully okay. I don't care about them anyway. This is really quite horrible, especially as right-wing politicians win all the elections right here, right now.
You suggested that child-free women should be awarded $80,000 on their 50th birthday, and this was met with an outcry in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. But governments have been subsidizing and incentivizing parents for a long time. So why is it more important to create more native children than to conserve our resources for a smaller but more sustainable population? Why is the goal more people?
Especially nowadays, right wing, everyone has to do military service again, also the women, etc. So we need more people to fight our wars. And our own nation is the greatest thing in the world. And of course, capitalism, we need consumers for our great goods, and who would buy them? And they have all those silly excuses, or who will care for us when we are old? Well, we have AI and robots, etc. We don't need all those people, and they won't do this anyway. They import poor people from the global south again to do the dirty work nobody of the precious German children wants to do anyway. So, and you could debunk all those myths, and it really annoys my socks off. And yeah, so of course, politicians have to be pro-natalist, because the majority here is still parents. And of course, no parent will vote for you if you say, we cut down on, for instance, child benefit. You can't do this. So I understand this to a certain extent. But nevertheless, it's just stupid breeder pleasing, I'll say it again, and or breeder privilege, because you get so many tax breaks and gifts, and everyone bows in front of you only because you had unprotected sex. Is this really such an achievement? I'm not sure about that. And for instance, also in Europe, we have the UK, which is better already. They give parents less child benefit for the second child, whereas here in Germany, we get more and more child benefit the more children you have. And this is a horrible development. This has to change. I keep saying this, but war, just some days ago, again, they said, oh, we agree upon nothing. We have this big coalition. And yeah, no, but we do agree upon one point, of course, our children, and giving more child benefit to parents. So this is the single most important thing here. And it's really stupid beyond all means if you look at the climate catastrophe happening right here, right now.
Yeah, but in a capitalist society, we need more people. We need more workers, we need more consumers, and we need those people to keep consuming more and more and more, because the goal is always growth, right?
Or more growth. Yeah, we have only one planet and finite growth. Well, somehow they think it's endless.
It can't grow exponentially. It can't grow forever. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
In medicine, we call it cancer, growing like this, but yeah.
Call Her Daring is sponsored by Bagnet Company. Back in 2015, I started Bagnet Company after being fed up using public restrooms with no purse hooks. With the goal of keeping women's purses off of nasty restroom floors, I created Bagnet, the bag magnet, which turned out to be useful in countless other situations, and I sold nearly 1 million since then. What I loved most was that I was making women's lives just a little bit easier, so I dedicated my company to doing just that. I created Perch as a bag hanger for horizontal and non-metal surfaces. I designed the phone sling as a way to tote your phone and a few credit cards, perfect for dog walks, bike rides, and quick runs to the store. My latest creation, the City Sling, is perfect for all-day carrying in a lightweight nylon with a built-in water bottle compartment. Easier, better, more beautiful. It's not a tagline, it's a life mantra. What is the impact that one single human has on the planet over their lifetime?
If you live here, it's an incredible impact. I might quote from the book, for instance, because I think this is quite a nice short. I found this in the National Geographic magazine, and they write that it would be, for instance, an average Westerner driving around so much that it would be enough to circle the whole planet 25 times. And this Westerner drinks 26,000 glasses of milk, eats more than a ton of bananas and 2 tons of breads, uses 1.8 million liters of water and lots of fuel as well. And wait till you hear this. We will also produce 64 tons of trash each. And we have so many people. So those numbers are really mind-blowing. And
64 tons of trash per person.
That is insane. Imagine that. And far too many people think, yeah, that's okay. Let's somehow open dumpsters in the third world, as they still call it, and they get all our shit. And here in Europe, it will be fine forever. But I think that will backfire. They are too stupid to get that. They also, or their precious children, will experience all those horrible things. I told you about the serious floods we had here several weeks ago, or the other opposite as well, because extreme weather is on the increase. And
Mhm.
sometimes we don't have any rain for weeks. Now we have rain every day, and the Danube is to swim in war. So, but somehow they just don't want to see this.
Put the blinders on, yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got environmental organizations that advocate for doing everything that we can to save the planet, but very few encourage not having children. Why is that? Why are we not talking about this? Why is this not like headlining news?
It's just too unpopular because we're not in South Korea, where 51% of young couples say we want to live child-free. You can say those things there, but here, as the majority still wants to have kids or has kids or several kids, you just don't want to offend them. And
Yeah.
somehow parents are very easily offended if you just point out numbers like this church, for instance, and then, oh, how can you say this? Well, sorry, it's a fact. That doesn't mean that I don't like your kid. It's not his or her fault anyway. You gave birth to it, not me. But okay. Just people don't like offending others, and that's why nobody talks about it.
And I feel like they're going to be silenced to some extent because when corporations and the uber rich need more people, when they need more growth, then that's not going to be a popular message. And it's not going to be, yeah, that's not, it might come out of organizations, but it doesn't. And it's definitely not going to be headlining news because who owns the news, at least here in the US? It's owned by the rich and the corporations.
And think of your Elon Musk. I hate him especially. He keeps pointing out that while he has 12 kids, so and he says over and over again that child-free or childless people should, for instance, lose the right to vote and things like that.
Yeah. So extreme. Yeah. I'm not his biggest fan as well.
Yeah, his message. Couldn't believe that.
I recently watched the documentary The Grab. Have you seen it?
I know that, yeah.
Okay, it follows investigative journalists as they uncover efforts by powerful entities around the world to control food and water resources as they become more and more scarce. And it makes clear that in the very near future, power will be held by those who control those resources. It's really frightening. And what really struck me is that this is not a problem that we'll be facing in the distant future. This is a problem that is already in motion. And I think we already covered this, but I want to talk about again, why aren't more people talking about this imminent threat? This is at our doorstep. We are going, like in our lifetime, you and I are about the same age, we're mid 40s. We are going to see major, I think, violence, power struggles, fighting for natural resources like water and food. Why aren't we talking about this?
For instance, it's better in your country, though, because some Democrats say, or you have those cool organizations like Population Balance, Population Counts, Population Matters. There are those organizations, and we don't have such organizations at all because we are horribly right-wing meanwhile. And this is almost like Hungary or Italy, where people like Meloni or Orban say, we need more native kids. Again, this horrible narrative that we need those own native kids to keep the foreigners out because we don't want Europe to have be taken over by criminals almost who have no culture and who destroy everything. So this is the right-wing narrative, which is gaining popularity in an incredible speed right now. And I'm shocked on a daily basis. I can't believe that people buy into this, but that's the situation nowadays. And so I really hope for those Anglophone organizations in the UK, in the US, in Australia as well, that they can push this forward a bit, because here in Europe, we are doomed.
You really feel that way? You're not optimistic?
No, sorry. That would be, no, that would be just stupid. And wishful thinking that usually doesn't get you anywhere. So.
True. Let's talk about feminism and having children. You have said that you love second wave feminism. What about it resonates with you, especially in regard to having or to choosing to be child free?
Well, there are cool persons who are real role models for me, like Shulamit Firestone. She also is in my latest German book, which I'd like to have translated, by the way. And Firestone says, we are not animals anymore, so we can and should use contraception and could free ourselves, because what she keeps pointing out is that really at the core of women's oppression is her childbearing and child-rearing role. And this is still the case also 50 years after her great book, The Dialectic of Sex. We still have more mothers working part-time, more mothers doing the chores, more mothers refraining from doing hobbies they had before. And they turn into those honest red wives they never wanted to be, or the ones I know, a bit more progressive ones, who said, no, we are doing everything equal and 50-50 and everything will work just fine. And surprise, surprise, usually it doesn't. So why bring yourself in such a situation? I don't get this. And Simone de Beauvoir, for instance, also wrote, no, of course, a cool feminist, a real feminist doesn't have kids, because this is the biggest favor you can do to patriarchy. They want women to have kids, so they are somehow usefully occupied and don't get strange ideas like fighting patriarchy into their heads. Yeah.
So having children is the biggest favor you can do for the patriarchy.
And I agree wholeheartedly.
Interesting.
Right.
You mentioned a statistic that I often see repeated on TikTok all the time, and that is that the happiest and healthiest subgroup in our society are unmarried, child-free women. Why do you think that's true?
The same reason actually as the one before, because we have all the freedom. We are young, where you know what I'm saying. And yeah, I fully get that, because we don't have all those restrictions and we can live up to our full potential. We can do the things we want to, and we can improve and read more and learn more and continually improve ourselves. And I often notice that when I talk to mothers or fathers, oh, really? I didn't know that happened. Oh, they are so, well, I don't want to call it ignorant, but of course, I get they have more things to do. They can't spend hours on the news, for instance. So many things just pass them by. And for me, it's important to be well informed and read books in 4 languages, etc., or doing all the hobbies and living up to the talents I want to develop. And being a parent somehow takes your force and time away. So of course, this makes you mentally and physically unhealthy, and and unhappy as well, especially the women, when they sit at home while he is playing soccer with the guys and she has the little one. Yeah, well.
Yep, it's golf here. They're always playing golf.
Or whatever you want to do.
Yes.
And you can do as a father, because you don't have any restrictions, then that's fully okay.
You, in your book, you said that to celebrate their lifestyle, some child-free couples are having events such as vasectomy parties. And I've never heard of this, and I was wondering if this is really true.
It happened in your country, not in mine.
Oh, I had no idea.
And I think this is quite cool. And I, for instance, celebrate International Childfree Day on August the 1st every year. And nobody else does this. But yeah, I hope that it will gain popularity soon.
I will be now, yes.
Yeah, it's better in your country anyway. They had the school child-free convention last year around the state. I was
In
one
the
of the
US or in Germany? In the US.
in Canada, in Canada, actually.
Oh, Canada.
They invited speakers from all around the world. I was part of Childfree International, and it was quite insightful.
Oh, that's very cool. So you were a speaker there?
Yeah,
Oh,
talking for
wow.
2
Is there video anywhere? I'd love to watch that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Okay, I'll
Also,
Google it.
it's on my homepage under resources, so to
Oh,
speak.
it is. Okay. Great. I will be watching that.
Really a cool event, because usually I get all this hatred or negative feedback, and talking among child-free like-minded people was quite cool. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, absolutely. It is cool talking to like-minded women. Absolutely. And men.
And men, yeah, people of all genders. Yeah.
You write that today's feminism often is a disappointingly reduced version, distilled to one question: how can we make a mother's burden lighter? What other questions do you think we should be asking?
I really think we should be asking questions that concern all the women, be they mothers or not. And we here in Germany, especially, we always focus on this traditional mother role. So we care about women between their 30s and 50s and their little kids. And that's all we care for. Yeah, well, there are younger and older women who have problems. Every woman has. We have a horrible sexist society and ageist society, and there should be so many things to help all the women. And I mean, we have a chancellor candidate probably of the right-wing party who voted for rape. If you are married, is not rape. It can't be. And those attitudes and opinions should be eradicated. I don't know how yet, but they shouldn't exist any longer. But the opposite, of course, is happening right here, right now. We have people promoting this, and I have a neighbor who is fully on board with this opinion. Okay, fine.
Wow.
Those are things which concern all the women and which affect the whole society in a negative way. Also, some men, by the way, even if they don't notice. But those are things we should combat. And not only, well, how can we help this mother even more? She gets all those tax breaks, money incentives, blah, this, that, and everyone helps her, and the father who produced this kid. But why not help people who have different achievements or goals or dreams? For instance, we also have homeless and a drug crisis here, and or prostitutes who want to quit the job. We could help all those people. Why does it always have to be the ones who chose to have kids? As we covered, it's not an ecologically friendly or especially cool, progressive, revolutionary thing to do. So why encourage and pamper them all the time to such an extent, which is really annoying and a slap in the face of other people?
Yeah. You believe that a genuine feminist is concerned with destroying the cage we live in rather than decorating it just so we like our prison better. In regard to having children, how do women decorate their cage?
Some, for instance, say, oh, well, but I can do this and that, and I don't have to refrain from anything, even if I'm a mother. And if you talk to them a bit more and get into this conversation deeper, they admit, well, of course, I'm incontinent and I can't do this anymore and I can't do that anymore. But well, it's okay. I have this child now. And if he or she smiles at me, this is everything. So they fool themselves in a way and tell them, oh, but the cage is lovely. I do like it. And if I don't like it anymore, I just paint it a different color. But the cage is, of course, necessary and great. And I'm a woman. That's what I'm there for. And sadly, also some cool and progressive women, I lost them to motherhood, so to speak, because they didn't have time or interest in anything else after giving birth. And this is really quite sad, actually.
How do you think mothers perform pseudo feminism?
Yeah, for instance, if they call themselves feminists and say it's feminist to have a kid, well, no, sorry, it's not. And it will never be, it just can't be. But they say, well, no, it's okay. I do all of this activism for my daughter. And this comes up frequently. Why does it have to be for your daughter? This is quite narcissistic. I do this for my female neighbor and for you and my student over there and this old lady over there. Um, yeah, but this is maybe because I come from a utilitarian perspective and I always want what's good for all of us who already exist and not only for one person I produced myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your own offspring.
Yeah. So this is a bit narrow-minded and really think we should care about all those people, especially girls and women. And you can empower them by a myriad of ways, and not only by giving birth to one and then maybe educate her in a way that she notices this and that and doesn't do this or that. And but is that enough? I don't think so.
You identify as antinatalist, but the term antinatalism is not super common in the US. Can you explain what it means?
Yeah, basically, in one sentence, it means that you always inflict harm upon people if you give birth to them because they can't consent, and every life entails lots of pain, disease, fatigue, boredom, suffering in general, all types of negative states of mind and body. And even if people tend to say, oh, but my life is pretty okay, this is again a strategy to make yourself feel better, although you do suffer and everyone suffers. And if you don't exist, you also don't suffer. And if anyone is interested in that, we have, for instance, David Benatar, a professor in South Africa, who wrote more books about that. Or actually, it has a long tradition in our philosophy. Also, people back in ancient Greece wrote about that. From time to time, it comes up, and it's always the cool people, the interesting ones. Or, for instance, in culture in general, we have Kafka and Heinrich Heine, or Flaubert in France, and several, or Montesquieu also in France. And there are several, or some women as well. Emma Goldman was an antinatalist. She kept repeating, women are more than incubators. We are not only our wombs. And this is really just a very cool way to go about it, in my opinion.
I think it's an interesting philosophy, antinatalism, because often parents seem to think or say that they are having children almost as if it's for the children's good. Like I knew I wanted to raise a good human and I wanted to raise a child, like you're doing the child a favor. But with this philosophy, the philosophy says this child, this person did not consent to being born. And you brought them into a world where they are going to suffer, where they are going to die. And they can never consent to that. And for that reason, you shouldn't do it. You've done this strictly for yourself. You did not do this for the child. You made a selfish decision that is going to negatively affect the child that you brought into the world.
That's exactly it. And especially nowadays, or Emile Cioran, he wrote this back 50 years ago when the world was still a better place than it is now. I mean, climate catastrophe. I always say climate catastrophe, not climate change, because it's really, I mean, it's 12 in my opinion, and also in the opinion of some serious scholars concerning environmental issues. And also the wars and pandemics, everything is going downhill in a rapid way. The political situation, you'll have Trump soon again. Congrats to that. I mean, sorry.
Don't say that.
Irony is maybe not the right thing. But yeah, you know what I'm saying. And who would do this on an innocent new being? I think it gets more and more an offense almost. And Choran, for
I
instance,
agree.
it's a scandal to reproduce.
Yeah,
And it was harming this new person. And many people say, well, the gift of life, sorry, I wouldn't have wanted that if I had known what I have to go through. And as you correctly said, everyone is going to die. You have to watch your parents die and other people you love, or cats. I cried for years and my
yeah.
cat died when I was 5.
I did too.
I was suffering like a gook. And yeah, why do this to me? Why not? Yeah. But so I found this philosophy quite cool and important. And yeah, of course, haha, funny. It's often ignored or even ridiculed by some other philosophers who say, ah, but there's only a tiny minority who knows this or talks about this. And do we really need this kind of strange, weird, negative philosophy? I think, no, we don't need this. And then they say they are optimistic and we need a more positive attitude towards life. Well, why is that? Because you want to justify your 3 or 4 Aryan kids?
Exactly. Yes.
But they fool so many people. And yeah, it's a sad story, actually.
Speaking about selfishness, it's so common for child-free women, especially women, to be told that they are selfish for not having children. How do you respond to that? I'm sure you've gotten that. What is your response to someone saying you're selfish for not having children?
I always say this is the exact opposite, good man or woman, because I'm not contributing to overpopulation. Also, Chelsea Handler says this, who is quite cool, by the way. And I'm a real feminist, and I don't bring harm upon a person by creating him or her and introducing him or her to a dying world. So who is selfish? That
Agreed.
usually cuts them up.
Good. I hope so.
You might have lost an acquaintance though, but yeah,
Well, that was probably going to happen anyway.
yeah, probably in this case. I can only recommend this comeback.
You state repeatedly that we need to be educating people, promoting family planning, providing contraception, protecting reproductive rights, and empowering women around the world. But in many countries, like the US, the opposite is happening. And it evokes a really grim outlook. And I asked you earlier if you're optimistic, and you're not. You don't see this getting better. Do you see it getting worse?
Yeah, actually, I do. Because as I mentioned earlier, thanks to Biden's horrible job on the debate, I really fear. I talked about this topic with my friend in Massachusetts only some hours earlier, and she was also in distress, saying, we'll get Trump back. We really will. And this will just be horrible for everyone there, and especially women. And also here in Germany, in all of Europe. Okay, the UK Labour one, that's an exception, but all the other countries in Europe are really gaining. The right wing wins everything. Every election goes to the right wing parties here in Europe currently. And so it will become even worse because they want nobody to have an abortion, none, even if the mother's life is threatened. Oh, well, who cares? We need a new baby. And yeah, they want less and less equality. They want women be in this traditional role again, like cooking, cleaning, taking care of the kids, supporting and serving your husband, and maybe going to church. And that's it, full stop. And I'm really horrified that we are going to be catapulted back in the 1930s, especially here in Germany. We had this once before. This is exactly the type of role the Nazis wanted for Aryan women, have as many kids as possible for the Führer, new soldiers, that's important, and serve your country by waiting on your husband and your kids. And that's your duty as a woman because you're an incubator, a womb on two legs, full stop. And so many young men or those who follow Andrew Tate and influencers like him, those young guys, the incels around me here, they all think, yeah, women are only good as, for instance, incubators or just in general sex objects, and that's it.
Although in the UK, didn't the UK just have an election in the right?
Labour one.
Yes.
That's what I said. Yeah, but okay, one country.
We could have some optimism about that. After 14 years, I think, right? It was 14 years that the right was in control.
Yeah, I was surprised, but it was cool.
Yes, luckily, very cool. That gives me hope. I mean, it's just a glimmer. I just need something to hold on to.
Yeah, right. Definitely.
And I think, and I hope that Biden will step down and we can get.
I want Kamala Harris, for instance.
Exactly. I think she would be the best.
Or Gretchen Whitmer. Or I have several Democratic women in mind.
Yes.
Would you vote for a woman? Many in your country wouldn't.
That's true, but I think many would, and I think she's definitely more viable than Biden. So again, I'm going to hang on to a glimmer of hope.
Yeah, I pray for that all the time. You
have some pretty radical opinions, and I can see how your message might be divisive or even offensive to some people. What's been the reaction to your books and to your activism?
I really have the whole range, so to speak. I get, of course, horrible rape and death threats quite commonly, and from the right wing, of course. And it's always this misogyny thing. Yeah, it's always insulting in a sexist way. So that doesn't surprise me at all. And I know several other feminists who are not doing child-free activism, just ordinary feminism, like more protection for girls when they walk in a dark street, blah, blah, really, or no violence against women at all, really basic stuff. And they get all those nice messages from hostile men as well, so small surprise. But I also have several fans, and I'm, of course, quite happy when they write to me.
Yeah, tell me about your fans. I want to know about the positive. I know you've positively impacted the lives of many people. So tell me about the messages from those people. What do they have to say? Because I know it must feel amazing to know that you have positively impacted the lives of women.
It really does. And also some men, by the way. And Also from other countries. This is cool. That's why I wanted the one book, and why I'd like to have all my books translated, by the way, because people from all over the world actually wrote to me. One young woman from Nigeria wrote, oh, well, in her country, everyone is having so many kids, and she was so glad to find this book, and she is child-free in Nigeria, which is really something, and she felt so empowered, and she got some hope out of the lines I put down. So. Or my favorite message from a young woman here in Bavaria from a village who almost was close to suicide, and said, reading this really showed her that there are more women like her, for instance, and as well, more important, that her reasons are valid and really important and cool, and doing her thing by being child-free is even the better option, so to speak, for all of us already existing, etc., for the animals and everything. So she felt empowered as well, and wrote that to me in nice words. And yeah,
That's wonderful.
it's really heartwarming.
That's wonderful. I love that. So, all right, I'm going to ask you, do child-free people have better sex, like the title of your book asks?
Yeah, of course they do. Because as this one saying goes, to open a nursery is to close the bedroom. And also Virginie Dupont in France wrote, the death of the couple is the birth of a child. And I really can relate to that. Several studies as well show, for instance, by Matthew D. Johnson or Paul Dolan in the UK, that's also the guy who wrote this, who found out that the healthiest and luckiest and happiest subgroup are the child-free young women, by the way. That's the guy. He keeps writing about this all the time. And he's really quite cool. Björn can't get his violent. He does have a kid or two, but he keeps telling us, well, don't, it would be better. He also wrote that women in all countries are judged way more harshly than the men if they say, oh, we want to be child-free. Small surprise again. And so, yeah, that's really pretty cool that we have people like that who also confirm what I intuitively knew, that your whole relationship is better and has a different level of quality if you can have meaningful conversations with your partner, and not only organizational stuff like, can you do the groceries? Can you pick him up from soccer practice and things like that, and being stressed out, falling into bed after an exhausting day, running after the kids. Who is up for anything then? Of course, they have problems. And also, yeah, I can't understand that. That's one reason why I didn't put myself in this position. I admit that. Who would? Also, if you think about all those health risks for women giving birth, I have another quote actually, which I'd like to add. I didn't know that either, but there are so many, many things. For instance, here, several women die giving birth in Great Britain, in Germany, and in the US. I think here in Germany, it's 36 women per year who die.
Wow.
In 2024. And even if you survive delivery, you often suffer from shock, diabetes, raised blood pressure, cystosis, low-lying placenta, or thrombosis. Further health threats are significant blood loss, infections, hereditary disease, preterm delivery, stillbirth, prolapse of uterus or bladder, sagging breasts, hyperpigmentation of the face, hemorrhoids, flexed musculature of your lower body, and so on. Some women also lose hair and teeth afterwards, and more and more and more.
It goes on and on. I want to do a whole episode on the risks of childbirth and pregnancy because it is not talked about enough.
Exactly. And I really do think there are so many horrible articles, also some I mention in here, I found later on. They keep appearing, and some mothers are really honest and even want to warn others and say, don't do this because you might be incontinent afterwards, or you might experience this and that. I also read this French study saying that 3 of 5 women have, for instance, really horrible pains having sex after having given birth, even if you wait all those weeks, as people tell you to do anyway, and they still suffer. I can't imagine physically. It's no surprise, but nevertheless, I found this quite shocking. And if we can get this message across to more and more women, I think we could somehow save some of from this horrible fate, because it is horrible. Who would want that? Of course,
Right.
everyone says, Well, the others, it will happen to the others, not to me.
You think it won't happen to you? Yeah.
Given this whole list of horrible risks, it's quite likely that one of those horrible things will happen to you, not only to this woman next door.
Right. I'm always shocked by people who say they didn't realize that having a child would affect their sex lives so drastically. And to me, it seems very obvious that you've got this new little human being that that requires all of your time and attention and mind share, and you're exhausted every day at the end of every day, and all your attention goes to that child now. So yeah, you just don't have time, nor do you have the energy, nor do you even sometimes have the desire for sex. And not only does the sex change, but your whole relationship changes, and people aren't prepared for that as well.
Yeah. I keep reading about that. Or also, I know one woman who has a serious nipple infection, which doesn't go away anymore. So if you, who is up then for your partner having a go at your boobs if they hurt like shit because you're this human person with them all the time? Well, I know it's not funny, but...
No, it's not funny, but...
You know what I'm saying.
What future projects can we expect from you? Because I loved your book, and I definitely want to read anything you have forthcoming. So I want to know what's going on.
I really am looking for an editor who would be interested in my latest German book, appeared last September. And yeah, I keep reading and writing, and I have a column in Switzerland now, by the way. So I keep doing that.
That's right. That's right. Yes. That is very exciting. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. They are more progressive in a way. I didn't get one in Germany, and usually people who are so much talked about as they all have columns in German newspapers. Well, I wasn't offered one. Why might that be? I wonder. Okay. But Switzerland is cool, so I'm glad and lucky. And yeah, any projects are interesting to me, so I always am open for suggestions.
Well, I hope you get a translator for the book. That would be great.
That would be
So anybody who's listening, if you can translate and edit, that would be awesome.
Well, I can translate it myself because
that's true. You can.
German, English, and philosophy. So, I own the rights, by the way.
Okay.
I was clever enough to keep all the rights.
Good for you.
So it wouldn't cost extra. It would cost almost nothing.
All right. Awesome. So you just need an editor.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
I didn't go with that one. They were fully okay, but the one guy also said to me, publishers suck at promotion. And then I was a bit disappointed. They didn't really do much to promote the book.
Oh, that is disappointing. I didn't know that publishers sucked at promotion. So you have to hire a separate...
That's what he said.
Marketing team? Interesting.
Disappointed. That's why.
That's too bad. Okay, so aside from a book and your new column, where can listeners find you? Website, social media, where can they find you?
I have a nice homepage, and I am on Instagram and Facebook, and just write to me.
Okay, great. What's your Instagram handle?
It's Verena Brunschweiger Eleonore.
Awesome. Well, Verena, it has been such a pleasure having you on the podcast. You definitely have some radical ideas, and it's been really interesting getting your perspective on the child-free movement. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. It was a great pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Call Her Daring podcast. You can find me and Call Her Daring on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Follow for even more content and conversations about women being radically honest about the female experience. Please join me here every week for a new episode of Call Her Daring, and let's continue the powerful tradition of storytelling with the goal of informing and educating us all, so that we may step into our truest selves and realize our full potential as powerful women.